All right, hey everyone. I'm here with Jeff Martin today. Jeff is an award-winning professional speaker, a certified coach, University of Guelph certified leadership professional, Harvard University certificate recipient for public speaking, and the curator of Inspire Legacy Company Online Academy, where he teaches the art of public speaking and student character development. Besides all that, he's a friend of mine, and I just want to officially welcome you. We were talking a little bit off camera there, but I want to welcome you to the podcast, the Rise podcast. Thank you for being on here. And yeah, I appreciate you and our friendship. And I have so many questions. Let me know, first of all, did I miss anything in that introduction that you definitely wanted mentioned?
No, I think you got it all, man. Listen, I am so elated to be here on your podcast, your new platform that is going to do wonders in this world. I really do believe it will. And I'm just so, again, just delighted to be on here and just, again, speaking with you and getting the chance to share and grow and learn and all that good stuff.
Nice, nice. So my goal here is just to provide as much value as I can to whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify or Apple. And we're going to touch on a few things here. And if there's things that you think that I'm going too far into, you just push me back. I kind of just go with the conversation and see where it leads.
Let's go with it. Yeah.
So a couple of things that I read that I didn't think I had read before. Jeff and I both have a policing background. I'm a former police officer at RCMP. You're a current police officer with York Police. I know youth motivational speaking is your passion, but you're still a law enforcement officer. This I knew. What I didn't know is that you have done over 1,000 forensic interviews with children.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that, and if that helps you at all in your youth motivational speaking.
Absolutely. I've always been someone who wants to make a difference in the community. I want to help people to strive, to grow, to become better. And so at some point in time within my law enforcement career, I said I wanted to go into the area of special victims unit, where you're helping people who have really been victims of some of the most difficult and heinous crimes you can think of. And so during my time within that area, I did focus on students, on children, specifically children who were sexually assaulted, physically assaulted, again, some of the most difficult things you can think of that some of these kids have gone through. And I have been fortunate enough to meet so many of them. And as you just talked about, forensically interview over 1,000 kids who have been sexually assaulted, kids who have, again, just really some of the most difficult things you can think of. They've been victims of that. And in that process of working in that area, in that position, it really has helped me to adapt my speaking to the level of students, of children understanding. And so, I really do have a love for our kids. And that's why I love to focus in on our students when it comes to public speaking, doing a lot of schools, just because of that, because I feel that through the skills I've been able to learn from that job, I can use it while speaking to some of our students.
Nice, nice. And I can say firsthand, seeing the effect you have on students, I can tell that you really care about them, because some speakers will go into you see them speak and they do a great job and then they leave. One thing I loved about you, and I noticed it when we spoke at the same conference, you not only spoke, but after you were done, you took as many questions as people had. You went out into the hallway and they continued to ask questions. You gave them a group hug. I still remember you had a group hug circle with a bunch of the kids that started to tell you things that they might not, I might be stretching here, they may not even have told their parents.
You're right.
And that, what kind of impact does that, or feeling does that give you to have them tell you things that they may not even have told people that they've known for years longer, just based on a 1-hour speech? I mean, I think that's a powerful impact to have. Tell me more about how that feels and what that experience is like when you do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Kwesi. I got to tell you, whenever I think about those situations, it really does, even to this day, have me choked up, because I think that all of us have a gift. I think we're all born with something that we're good at, and we can use that skill to build on to become really extremely great at it. And at some point in time in my life, I started to realize that I did have a gift in public speaking. And, I might not be the best public speaker by any means, but I recognized that I was able to really touch the hearts and minds of people who were in the crowd. And so that's why I do what I do. That's why I always study the craft, because I want to become better. And, exactly what you're speaking about, in so many circumstances when I've gone out to some of these schools, and even with adults as well, with organizations, after I go through my story and I share and I kind of do my presentation, or even during the presentation, oftentimes, depending what I'm speaking about, I will see, the emotions build up in some of the people in the audience. I will see the tears. I'll see, it really all does come out based on the words that I'm saying and the stories that I'm sharing. And I love it to see that, because it just shows that I'm really digging into the heart and soul of that individual. It's not about just surface talking. And, we know speakers out there who are just in it for the money. And I'm not knocking anybody specifically, because, in any industries, people are out there for the wrong reasons. They're out there to make money. For me, though, it's deeper than that. For me, it really comes down to transforming somebody's life. Because the truth is, Kwesi, is that I do believe that when I get an opportunity to speak in front of, whether it be 2 people, whether it be 2,000 people, the truth of the matter is that somebody in that audience, my voice may be the last voice of reason that they'll ever hear. And so if I don't say the things that need to be said, if I don't allow the words to flow through me and go to that individual, then they may leave there and decide to take their own life. Yeah. They may leave there and decide that they're going to pick up a gun and go out there and do something they shouldn't be doing. And the reason why I know this is because I've had conversations with people afterwards. You speak about, after my presentation, how the crowd has come around me, and, the conversations that we've had with that particular one you're speaking about. Man, I don't remember. I think we were out there for another hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe, after the presentation, just really going deeper in a smaller group, just in the middle of the hall. And again, it's those things are important to me, because, I can always be on stage and make people laugh and, share my stories. But when people start to share their stories with me of what they've been through, and like you said, sharing things that they haven't even told their own parents or their own loved ones, it shows me that I have a bigger purpose. It's not about me. It's not about Jeff. It's about what I can give to the world with what I have, and how I can help people to excel through their difficulties. So yeah, those type of situations are so important to me. And that's what's kind of made it hard for me during this COVID time, because you can give a virtual presentation and it's all good, but it's those after conversations for me that are just so touching, that you don't really get in the same aspect when it comes to virtual speaking.
Yeah, you get it on social media, but, just to be able to, and I see you almost like a father figure, especially when you have your arm around somebody and, they come up and you give a big papa hug to them. That's just not there right now. And
correct.
I'm sure some of the students you've spoken for miss you. I mean, Jeff won't say this because he's a humble guy, but he has a quote of his up in a school hallway. I don't know where I saw it, if it's out in East Toronto, but that's how much impact he has when he speaks, that they're taking his quotes and putting them up on their walls, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I was so taken back when I saw that. And again, it just shows me that I need to continue on my path. And again, we're virtual now. And if that's all we have, then we work with it. Because again, like, as we go through the problems that we go through in life, I'm talking about in a regular year, on a regular day, not even with COVID or the racial issues that we've had in 2020, on a regular day, people are going through problems. So then you add COVID to that, you add the racial issues to that, you add the fact that people are losing loved ones. It's a lot. And so, yeah, I think it's so important just to continue to share your gift and your voice, because it really can make a difference in someone's life.
It definitely does. I guess what I want to ask is a word of advice to maybe parents, because I should have mentioned too, you speak to corporate, you speak to parents, you speak about diversity and inclusion, as well as, self-worth. And I mentioned before that sometimes you may be hearing things that they don't tell their parents. How, as a parent, and you have 3 boys, I think it is 3 boys.
I do have 3 boys. Yes, it's a busy house.
Yeah, you have a full house. So what would you say to a parent when it comes to getting their kids to open up more? Because you may have heard things, like I said, that the kids aren't telling their parents. So if a parent's listening to this and saying, okay, well, how do I have that impact in my home like Jeff so that my kids talk to me more at a deeper level, what would you say?
You know, one of the things I speak about is the Clark Kent syndrome. And what that is that our children will always see us as supermen and superwomen. They'll always see us that way. And we have seen our parents that way, just because, you know, when and children are growing up, that their mother or their father or that guardian in their life has always been the person who's made sure food was on the table. They made sure there was a roof over their head. They paid for soccer or basketball, whatever extracurricular, you know, activity that child is doing. That parent or that guardian has always been the Superman or Superwoman. But I think it's important that we show our children the Clark Kent. And what that is, you know, Superman is always big and strong and his hair is always perfect. However, the Clark Kent, when it comes to Clark Kent, he's nerdy, he's dorky. You could see that he has issues, he has problems. You could see that he's not perfect. And I think it's important that we share that side with our children. And I'll give you an example. Like with my children, especially my older one, every birthday that he has and he gets 1 year older, I sit down and I talk to him and I say to him, you know, I've never parented an 11-year-old before. And so this is brand new to me. You know, I have, you know, obviously your brothers, you know, after you know, but because you are the first at this age, I've never had to parent a 10-year-old, 11-year-old before. And it's going to be different for daddy. I'm learning as I go along. I want them to see that I'm learning, not that I know everything. And of course, I can't necessarily go in his head and change his thinking of who I am in that Superman phase. However, I can show him that daddy has flaws. There's some days that daddy's going to be really tired and I don't want to play. I'm going to try to play, but there's sometimes I don't want to play. There's sometimes that daddy's going to be maybe a little bit snippy and it's not your fault. And I'm going to try not to do that. But I just want you to know that sometimes that's going to happen. If we as parents can just be honest with our children in that aspect, it just shows our children that that we are human, so to speak. We are not just that Superman and Superwoman, but we're someone who has flaws, because God knows I have flaws. Now that I'm older and I can see my parents, I know they have flaws, but I didn't see them growing up. But if my parents kind of expose them to me in the way of, this is who I am, and, you know, we have to love who we are. And yeah, I'm going to make mistakes. Yeah, there's some days I'm going to be really tired. I'm going to be really mad. If we can show our children that side of us, the Clark Kent in us, then I think it adds to them being open and honest, because they can see that, again, it's not that perfect person that we have to be looking at all the time. Daddy makes mistakes, so I can make mistakes as well.
I think that's very important too, that they have flaws, we don't see them until we're older. And to expose that. And in one of my workshops, I teach authenticity, and in authenticity, I say we have to share our 4 F's to show that we're authentic: our firsts, our flaws, our frustrations, and our failures. And you're saying that in a beautiful way, superhero imagery, which I love, showing our kids the Clark Kent. So maybe sitting down at the dinner table and saying, or sitting down with them and just saying, okay, listen, this is who I may be at times, and I don't mean to be this way. Maybe even sharing some of the times when they didn't know you didn't have all the answers.
Absolutely.
And okay. Now that's a huge tip for parents. That's really good. And maybe that's something that the kids see in you when you share your stories, because I know you're big on storytelling. You don't just say, okay, this is what you need to do, ABC, in order to have self-worth. You share your stories. And one of your stories that you share is a sad one about your cousin, Omar, I believe it is. I went through and I read his book. And by the way, make sure you pick up this anthology book, Uni. You're saying I wouldn't come prepared, did you?
Oh, man, I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
No, I got you, man. I got you. So Jeff's chapter in here is called The Ugly Gift. And he talks about Omar, which is your cousin, who, and you'll correct me if I'm mistaking any of the details, but was it a gang shooting and he lost his life, or was it not even that related? Just let me know a little more about that.
Yeah, no, it wasn't gang related at all. Omar was not known to be a part of any gang. And you know, the truth is, to this day, we don't know much. We don't have much detail. The shooter or shooters, the people who are responsible, we don't know who they are. And the police know who they are. The police, you know, they did their investigation. for one reason or the other, they never came to a conclusion of making any type of arrests. And so, yeah, to this day, it's been, some time now, and we don't know the details of what really took place and why.
Okay, well, I'm sorry that I mentioned it that way. I
No, that's okay.
Assumptions, but that's a sad thing that happened. Like you lose someone that was close to you, and you had so many things piled up on you. Not only the sadness of the situation, not only the feeling of vengeance. I want to get back at these people. You're a police officer, and you have more of the means to get back at these people. Like you had some thoughts in your head, but not only that, you had relatives that asked you to do more, that were expecting you to be Superman, if you will.
Yes.
Listen, man, you're in. Solve this case.
Yes.
How did you deal with all that?
Yeah, that was one of the toughest pieces, because here are people that you absolutely love, people that you see that are in pain. I was in a lot of pain. If you lose a loved one in any fashion, you know what that feels like. To lose a loved one at the hands of somebody else, the level of pain just goes up. And so, yeah, to have family around me, and they're saying to me, Jeff, you're a police officer now, you got to go out and solve this. And I'm like, it doesn't work that way. Like, I didn't even know how to write a ticket, let alone go solve a murder. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then, that was one piece. Another piece, it wasn't even in the jurisdiction that I was working in. So there's so many elements to it, but it's the pain of what everybody was feeling that was driving them to say, we need answers. Who can give us answers? Jeff has a foot in the door, even though it's in the wrong door. Jeff has a foot in the door. Jeff, you got to go out there and get this done for us, because that was your family. You love him. So let's get this done. Those people, those officers who are supposed to be investigating, they don't know Omar like we did. And so because you know him, he's your family, he's your blood, go out there and solve this thing. And so that was one of the hardest pieces for me, because here I am struggling with the anger of losing him, the hurt of losing him, and to see their hurt, my family members' hurt, added to my pain. Because for those who know me, I'm a lover, I'm a hugger, I really care about people. As I talked about earlier, I want to transition people's lives to help them to go while they're going through difficulty. And I always want to be engaged in situations like that. And so when I see my family's pain, it becomes my pain. And so that's what drove me to wanting to go out there and seek revenge. But yes, as you talked about, that was one of the hardest things to deal with, was having my family look at me almost like a failure to say, Jeff, why aren't you doing more?
Yeah. And that's a tough thing to deal with. And then there's also the forgiveness for something that wasn't solved. Like, how does someone, and maybe not even in the same situation, how does someone go from vengefulness to forgiveness, or even spitefulness to forgiveness? It doesn't have to be a death in the family, but just someone who did you wrong, and you have this feeling inside. How do you get over that? How do you move past that?
Forgiveness is such a powerful thing. It's something that I don't believe everybody really truly comprehends. When it comes down to forgiveness, it's more about you than it is about that other individual who's done you wrong. And, some time ago, I think, Kwesi, I think you're very similar to me, where you consume a lot of self-help stuff, motivational stuff. And so Brene Brown, I was watching an interview with her a while ago, and she was speaking about a certain question. And she said, are people doing the best that they can with the tools that they have? And, I really sat with that one for a while. I started to ask different people to kind of get their opinion. Are people doing the best that they can with the tools that they have? And I had to come to the conclusion at the end of it that the people who did this to Omar, the people who took him from us, I had to conclude that they were doing the best that they can. Now, hear me out. Of course, they took Omar's life. They killed someone. That is a crime. That is something that causes pain to our family, probably for the rest of our life. However, I don't know who's responsible, but when I do work with students who are in the prison system, when I do work with kids who have gone down that wrong path, I quickly see and understand that there's no child out there who says, I want to grow up to be a murderer. There's no 2-year-old that says, I want to grow up to rob a bank. At some point in time within their life, I believe they have been let down, whether it be by parents, maybe a father's not in their life, whether it be by the school system, whether it be by the judicial system. At some point in time, these kids start to believe that the only way out, the only way to survive, is to go and do a certain crime. And so when I look at it at that angle, I can start to envision the people who took Omar from us. And I say to myself, if that's the way they, and again, it's all speculation. I don't know who's responsible, but again, working with very similar youth, I have to think to myself, at that moment, they believed that that was the right thing to do, to take Omar's life for whatever reason that was.
So maybe they're acting within the world that they know. And
that's exactly
all they're doing.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Someone who was raised with two parents and maybe mom's a lawyer and dad's a doctor, the chances of them going off the rails and now becoming a gangster is very minimal because they're surrounded by positivity. They're surrounded by influence. Like chances are if dad's a doctor, his friends are doctors, his friends are influencers. And so even the crowd that mom and dad keep, the parties at the house or, the Christmas, dinners, you're going to have influential people constantly around you. On the other side, I have met very many kids, students who, as soon as they walk out of their door, they see prostitution, they see drugs, they see the guy driving in that expensive car and he's the head gangbanger or he's the head drug dealer in the neighborhood. And they don't have the positive influence that some other people have. And so they're going to grow up believing that they can't achieve at certain things because the surrounding, the things that they continue to see and hear feeds into who they believe they're going to become. Mm. And so based on that, yeah, when it comes to forgiveness, man, I really believe that forgiveness is so important. And as the saying says, when you're upset with somebody, it's like drinking poison and expecting them to die. And, you can sit here and be fuming at someone and that other person has no idea. They're living their life. They're having fun. They're partying. And you are fuming to the point where your blood pressure is going up, right? It's changing the chemicals in your body because you're so upset. And now it's causing you stress. And so, yeah, it's so important to learn to forgive. And again, going back to that question, are people doing the best that they can? I think that's another podcast episode in itself, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Doing the best you can with what you have.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned there, if your parents are a doctor and a lawyer, what do you say about the fact that it might just be one person, right? Because, there are people out there that, their parents are both professionals and they're surrounded by mentors. For some people, it's just one person. Like I grew up in a single parent home. I grew up in Rexdale. Outside of my door, things like what you just mentioned were happening. People got shot and the people that got murdered. And I was raised by one caring adult, which is my mother. And sometimes that's all it takes is one. And you have a similar story. You had that kind of vengefulness that in your heart, and you had a mentor that came into your life, a police officer, I think it was a supervisor that cared about you and asked you, like, how you doing? Not like just suck it up and get back to work. Because in policing mentality, that tends to be the case.
I had that too, yes.
Far too much. But he's like, Jeff, no, seriously, how you doing? And then he told you his similar story. So all it takes sometimes is one person. So if you're listening to this, you don't have to have parents that, if you do have the parents that are both professionals, both in the home, excellent. But if you have one person around you, and I think that's what you're doing for some of the kids at some of the schools and some of the prisons that you speak at, it's that one person, right?
Absolutely. Being that person for some of these kids is so important. And, I want to take a quick second just to shout out Rexdale. I don't know if I knew you were from Rexdale. I'm not sure if we knew that, but, we're obviously from the same hood. You know what I mean? So
next, yeah. I went to Highfield, Smithfield, Naki. I didn't make it to Naki because my mother moved me to Mississauga by that point.
Really?
But yeah.
Okay. I went to Smithfield and Naki, so we'll have to talk about that off air. Okay.
So we could have been friends from time. Okay. See?
Yeah, that's funny. We'll have to talk about that off the air.
Smaller world than we think.
Yeah, absolutely it is. Absolutely. But yeah, kind of going back to what we're saying, it's just so important that we, I think it's important that we show representation, allow people to see what they can look like, what they can be, what they can sound like, because if they never see it, then they never know that they can become it. You never know that you can become a doctor or an entrepreneur, an investor until you see someone, not necessarily looks like you, but someone that you can relate to that can show you, oh, I can do this. Why? Because this person has done it. And,
not just racial, it might be social or economic similarities. It doesn't have to be because we're Black or anything like that.
No, it doesn't have to be. And sometimes it is, of course. But, with anything that you can relate to with somebody and you start to see yourself in them when they are 10 steps ahead of you, you now can see the path in front of you if that's what you want to do, because someone who resembles you, someone who sounds like you, someone's from your neighborhood, because they've done it. So now you can recognize that you can do it too. And, another thing I want to say as well is that mentor that you talked about, that person who approached me, he was the exact opposite of me. So I was brand new in the police service and he was on for 20 something years. Like, he was a senior. I was a brand new cadet and he was 4 or 5 ranks ahead of me. I was white. Sorry. He was white. He was white. I was Black. Absolutely. Yes. He was white. I was Black. Again, I was young, brand new on the job. He was older. There was so many opposites in my mind. And at one point in my life, I would have said, this person can't understand what I'm going through, just because visually I would have believed that they can't relate. However, because he was able to go through, or unfortunately, he went through something very similar where he lost a loved one in a violent way. When he first got on the job, he was able to match my story and he understood my pain. And so it was through that connection that really helped me to propel me forward to become who I am today.
Nice. And now back to what you're saying about, environment. And I think environment is very key. And you probably listen to self-help and read and study so that you can get around people that are where you want to be. And we didn't grow up with entrepreneurial parents necessarily, or I didn't anyways, and I don't think you did either, that knew a lot about growing a business, but now you're an entrepreneur and I'm an entrepreneur. How do you now kind of instill that in your kids, right? So that they know more about things that you may not have known about much growing up. How do you change the game for them?
Yeah, so kind of going back to what you just talked about, both parents were actually entrepreneurs. Okay. However, so my mother was a florist. She actually owned a flower shop. And my dad, in different times within our lives growing up, he would own his own cleaning company. Saying that, though, I didn't know that when you became an entrepreneur, I didn't know that you can actually use that avenue, that vehicle, to actually make a lot of money and be successful. My parents were working all the time and my mom was always in the store. My dad was always doing his thing cleaning, and money was always tight in the house. And so my parents understood their skill. My mom was a beast when it came to making flowers, but she knew nothing about business. And so I've come to learn now as an adult that you have to be a beast at your skill, but you also have to understand the business piece. And if you don't understand the business piece, then you hire someone. You get people to fill in the gaps, the voids of the areas that you don't understand, because your skill is no good if you can't do anything with it. And so that's one of the lessons I learned. And so for me, as I talked about, monetarily, there was issues in the home growing up. Unfortunately, we were homeless twice in my life. And now that I'm older and I understand this Canadian system, my parents weren't born here, but I fully understand the Canadian system, whether it be the educational system, the financial system. I'm changing the game for my own children. There's a saying that says, don't give your children what you didn't have. Give them what you didn't know. And what I didn't know was that, you can take things and sell them and make money. What I didn't know was that you can take money, invest it, and it can turn into something if you're investing into stocks or properties. And so as I got older and started to fully comprehend it and not be scared of it, because I was super scared of stocks. I thought it was like an old rich guy thing. But it really isn't. If you take the time to fully understand it, you can now grow your own portfolio. And so because I understand it now as an adult, I teach it to my children. So at 11 and 7 years old, my youngest one is 2. He has no idea what's going on. But my 11 and 7-year-old, they understand stocks. They know the definition of a bull market, a bear market. They know what a PE ratio is. They know what a lot of the definitions are. And I have them buying. They can't do it officially, but they're buying stocks under my account, Nike and Tesla, and they're understanding it. Because the way I see it is, if I can teach it to them now at 11 and 7, then who are they going to be at 47?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who are they going to be? And so I'm giving them the tools that I didn't have and I didn't know to help to propel them.
I'm super excited about that too, because I started investing in stocks late as well, like ETFs and, dividend stocks, creating residual income. And I started doing that in my 30s. And I'm super excited for Phoenix because he's going to start at least 20 years before me.
Yes.
With an understanding that I didn't have and no one taught me. And I'm not blaming my mother at all. She just didn't know. I invested for her as an adult. Once I started to do it, I'm like, listen, give me some of that money you got in your RSPs.
Right.
Let's invest it right. And so, yeah, we take that knowledge and then we, as you write in your book, the second book, which I have right here, if you have kids, you need to get brothers from the 6 or a daughter, sisters from the 6, especially if you're in Toronto. Don't worry, Jeff, I got you.
But I appreciate it, man.
In it, I love what you wrote. Let me just read it here. I don't want to get it wrong.
It's at the beginning of the book where I say to JM, CM, and KM.
My ceiling is your floor.
I do what I do because of you. My ceiling is your floor.
Is your floor. I thought it was on your about page, but no, it's at the beginning. But I love that. My ceiling is your floor. And to me, that says that as high as I can go, you start there. And I want to push you way higher than I ever went. Is that what it means to you? Like, how did you come up with that?
That's exactly what it means to me. And I probably heard it along the way, but it's something that's just resonated with me, being a father. Not just a father, but a father of 3 boys. It's one thing to be a father, and don't get me wrong. If I had little girls, I would love them to death. But knowing that I have 3 boys, meaning that it means to me that they're going to be walking directly in my steps. If I had a girl, she'd be, following my wife a little bit and following me a little bit. My sons are going to be walking directly in my steps. And it doesn't mean that my wife doesn't have an influence. Of course she does. But as a man, I know that the way I treat my wife, my sons are watching, and that's how they're going to treat their girlfriends and their wives in the future. The way I handle finances, my children are watching. And it's important for me to, again, teach them the things that I know. And then, again, as we talked about earlier, talk about the things that I don't know, but I'm learning, so they can understand that these are the gaps, the areas that dad maybe lacked in, and I can kind of build on for myself as I get older. It's making them strong, making them resilient, especially in the world that we live in. We saw the issues happening with the racial piece in 2020. It scares me because my boys right now, everyone looks at them and says, oh my goodness, they're so cute. But at some point in time, there's a line, and they're going to cross over the line from being cute to being scary. And that's what scares me. And so I need to do what I have to do to prepare them the best I can, whether it be setting themselves financially, whether it be the real estate business, which we're hoping to kind of venture into as well within the near future. It's showing them, giving them the tools that they need. And as you said, if I can reach a certain level, then that's where they start. There's no need to start behind me. There's no need to start, 2 steps behind dad. Because everything I have, the knowledge and the skills and the abilities, it is my job to give it. And not only just to my kids, but to kids within our community who need it as well. Because we talked about earlier, a lot of these kids don't have this knowledge. They don't have this understanding. No. And so it's about giving it to them so they can as well start where I finish.
And and not only they get the knowledge, they get the belief that they can do anything. And on the race piece, what do you tell them about 2020 and COVID and the issues that we have with race and what's going on south of the border and to a lesser extent here too? How do you prepare them to be resilient young men?
I really show them. So I talked about what happened this year with George Floyd. They saw a very small piece of the video. I didn't want to show them the whole thing because I don't think at the age they're at that they need to see it. It's in its entirety. However, I showed them a very small, the beginning clip, just to show them the differences, the unfairness that was happening. And then I lead with that to say life is sometimes not fair. And because of somebody's skin color, because of somebody's religion, because of somebody's gender, sometimes people are not treated fairly. And unfortunately, us who are Black, sometimes we don't get the same opportunities as other people. And so I show them that, and not to scare them by any means, but to show them that this is the world we live in. And also, how can we build from that? Like, we don't want this world to remain the same. So how do we build to make this world better for other people? How do we make this world better for ourselves so we can give to other people? And that's how I have the conversation, to show them that despite what's going on, it doesn't mean that they have barriers. Well, we all have barriers, but it doesn't mean that barrier has to stop you. Sometimes you have to fight a little bit more to get past that barrier, to climb that mountain, but you can still climb it nonetheless. You can still get through it nonetheless and become who you're supposed to be.
And then talk about that then too. What role does history play in that? And this can go for any race, anybody at all. But what role does explaining our history to our children have in building their self-confidence and resilience? Because I know in one of your talks, you hammer the point home. You say there's no president, there's no basketball player, there's no singer, there's no actor that can stop you from being the person you want to be. Yes. How do we balance that belief that they can do anything with the fact that sometimes there are barriers that we do have to push through and maybe push a little bit harder? How do you balance that?
So I show them that we always have opportunity, and it's up to us to use that opportunity. So going back to my parents were born in Jamaica, and not just in Jamaica, they were born and raised in a very rural area of Jamaica. So the opportunities and the monies was very slim. My parents came to Canada, got a house, were able to create a life for myself and my siblings. When my parents die, I'm not going to get a bunch of money sitting waiting for me. Like, there's no dowry sitting waiting for me. There's no inheritance. I don't have, 3 farmlands and 18 homes waiting for me. I don't have that waiting for me. In fact, there might be some debt. Who knows? You know what I'm saying?
No private island waiting for you?
No private island waiting for me. But what my parents were able to give me was opportunity, right? Let's go back even further to grandparents, great-grandparents, because I know my background, my heritage. I know that my parents come from Jamaica, which means that the people there, my forefathers were enslaved coming from Africa. Again, they never left any money or land for me, right? Based on the circumstances. But what they were able to give was opportunity. And, there's times I can really push myself because I look at the fact of, I know that I had a great ancestor who wasn't allowed to sit and relax. They weren't allowed to sit and binge watch Netflix all day. They were forced to be in those fields. They were forced to work. They were forced to be enslaved without a choice. And so when I look at that, I'm like, okay, well, I need to keep going. And it doesn't mean I don't rest. Doesn't mean I don't sit on the couch with my wife and watch a couple shows. Doesn't mean I don't do that. But I know that there's a bigger mission ahead, because the people who've come before me, I am standing on their shoulders. And because I stand on their shoulders, I need to ensure that I can stretch and reach as tall as I can, so the generation after me can stand on my shoulders. Because of the time that we live in, technology has changed things. So you no longer have to worry about working at a job and getting laid off. And those things, of course, they still happen. And we do have to think about that. But people are making money online like never before. You're getting people who are in China who are buying items, people who are in Brazil who are buying items from someone who's in Canada or the US. And so the opportunities have grown. And so it's important for me to understand, to adapt to the world that we live in and grow with it and find ways that I can make money through it. I can survive. I can become the best version of me through it, and then pass that on to my children. Again, giving them opportunity. Opportunity doesn't always mean money. Sometimes it can, but sometimes, and to be honest, probably most times, it's the education that we pass on. Not book smart from school, but the knowledge and skills that I have learned as being a human, as being a man, as being a Black man, passing it on to my children, and then showing them that they can excel. As you talked about, my ceiling is their floor. Excel from where I end, and take off and do what you have to do to become the best version of you.
Absolutely. And for you, obviously, one of the big things that you do is you speak, and that's your gift. What do you say to people when they don't know their gift, when they don't know their purpose? They might say, hey, Jeff, it's easy for you to be passionate, for you to push forward every day, because hey, you're a speaker, you're there to help people, you're there to be an uplifter. And so you just go forward with that. What if I don't know?
if someone doesn't know, there's 3 questions that I ask them to review every single day, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. The questions are, who am I? What do I want? And what's my purpose? Who am I? What do I want? And what's my purpose? When you ask yourself, who am I? It gives you an opportunity to define who you are, not for the world to define who you are. If I ask the world who I am, they're going to tell me as a Black man, I'm a criminal, I'm a drug dealer, I'm supposed to be in jail, I'm supposed to be dead. I've heard people tell me that, literally, they've told me that. If I allow the world to define who I am, then I never become the speaker who I am today, the author who I am today, the things, the ideas that I have that I'm hoping that will manifest before I leave this world, because I get to define who I am. So who am I? Who am I is the first question. What do I want? Not what someone else wants, not what your mom and dad want for you. I want you to grow up and become that doctor. No, what do I want? What do I want for my life? Like, what is it that I want to fulfill while I'm here? And then the last question, what is my purpose? What do you believe your purpose is? Why do you think you were put on the earth right now? Like the age you're at now, experiencing 2020 right now, experiencing COVID right now. Like, why weren't you born in the 1912s? Why weren't you born in 2042? You were born when you were born, and you're the age you're at now, and you're experiencing 2020 at this age. Why is that? If we ask ourselves these 3 questions, who am I? What do I want? What's my purpose? I believe it starts to bring clarity. You may not get the answers right away, but the more you ask yourself these questions, it helps to bring clarity to your life, so you can now start to move towards the purpose that you believe that you have for this world.
Nice. I like those questions. And that was funny. I was listening to a podcast today, and one of the things that was mentioned was Jay Shetty, and I was listening to him say that if you don't know, one thing to do is to start doing things. So take your weekends and go to events, take up, something like a course or something, and pick things to do every single weekend for a month. And just the worst thing that can happen is you picked a bunch of things that you don't like to do, but you may find a spark in there. I don't know what your introduction was to speaking. Maybe tell me about that. My introduction was Toastmasters. I'm not sure what it was. What was it for you that started to lead you into knowing that, hey, listen, this speaking thing, I can go somewhere with this?
Yeah, I got to tell you, I was actually thinking about this the other day, like what really led me down to the path to where I am today. And I think for me, I know what it was for me was the passion of wanting to make change in people's lives. So I distinctly remember thinking to myself, I'm a police officer. I'm a Black police officer. I know that there's kids out there who will, as soon as I tell them who I am, what I do, I can grab their attention, and now I can help them. And so I started to just, email schools. And I said, hey, listen, I'm a police officer. I grew up in a tough neighborhood, so I know what that feels like. And I'm hoping just to come to your school and talk to your kids. And one of the schools emailed back, and she said, where have you been all my life? And so we sat down, we worked something out, and I've actually been working with that school for the past 5 years. And this is, I believe this predates me even listening to any motivational stuff. It was a passion for me of just wanting to try to be a change in someone's life. Now, I remember my first session talking to these kids. I stood in front of them, and I'm like, okay, now I'm going to try to speak and share my story. And it was awful. It was a mess. It was all over the place. There's no rhyme or reason. It didn't flow the way I wanted it to flow. But at the end of the day, a couple of students came up to me and said, Jeff, that was actually pretty good, man. We actually learned some stuff there. And it was through that method I said, let me see if I can kind of learn some tips and tricks from other speakers to kind of share my message better. Since I'm going to, teachers, the principal said, come back next month. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can work on something. And it was through that I really started to dig into some of the other speakers that are out there, learning and growing and see what they do. Some of the greats from Les Browns and ETs to, there's a ton of them out there, of course, Zig Ziglar, and just learning what some of these guys do and how they do it and what made them successful. And that's what really set me on the path. So that's why I'm so proud of that, because it wasn't about me becoming a speaker. It was about me wanting to make change. And I think when you lead with that,
everything else.
What's that?
Your why preceded, you becoming a speaker.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was stronger. Knowing your why, knowing your purpose, and the vehicle just happened to be speaking. Something
Yes.
said in there I want to touch on before I forgot. I love it that because action doesn't only cure fear, action cures failure. Because you
Mm.
took action by speaking at that school when you weren't ready, when you just wanted to make a change, and your passion and your heart for the kids made a couple of kids come up to you, even though, as you say, your speech wasn't that great at the time. So
Yes.
there's a message in there about failure, right? I mean, do you talk about failure being necessary, being part of the process when you talk to your kids or other kids? And I may not have met you if you didn't decide to fail before getting it right.
Absolutely. Failure is a part of the process. It is a part of the what you have to do if you're trying to get from A to B, because nobody is great at the beginning. Some people have a skill and they're a little bit better than others, maybe a lot better than others, but if they really want to excel, they have to work on it. Michael Jordan didn't just walk into the NBA. LeBron James didn't just walk into the NBA. These guys worked on their game every single day. And what makes LeBron James so great, what makes Kobe Bryant so great, is that these guys put in the work even after the fact of being in the NBA. So when all the other players go on vacation at the end of the year, these guys are working. When all the players are, taking it easy at the end of the game, they're back in the gym putting in more hours because they're trying to become great. So failure is a part of it because you have to try. And if it doesn't work, then you try something else, then you pivot. And eventually you're going to find what works for you. Like there's schools that I've gone to in the past, and while I'm speaking, the alarm goes off or the morning announcements go off. And I'm like, really? Like I'm, getting have my momentum going. I'm about to jump into a good point, and then beep, 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 or something goes off, or the principal's talking over the mic. There's times I've walked into a school and they're like, yeah, I know we said, we'll give you half an hour, but really we got 10 minutes. So do what you got to do and come off the stage. And I'm like, whoa. And sometimes you feel real disrespected. Like I've come out here to do my thing. However, because I've continued, I didn't give up. I tried and I failed and I tried and I failed. I've been able to find my level of perfection, so to speak. And, I'm not perfect by any means, but find what works for me to the point where, I'm fortunate enough to have schools calling me and organizations calling me because I've worked on it. So it's no longer about, okay, who's this guy, Jeff? It's about, oh, Jeff Martin, yeah, I've heard of him, and let's get him in. And I'm super humbled because of that. But that happens when you continue to try and you fail, but then you get back up and do it again.
You do it again. I want to, as we're finishing off here, I want to ask a question. And if this has happened to you, before you found speaking, before you called that teacher up and went to the school, you probably had that feeling inside you, like, man, I want to do more than just be a police officer. I want to transform lives. Did you ever run into any emotional friction, like, man, I don't know what to do? Was there a moment of time where you didn't know how to push forward and maybe felt a little bit down about it? And how did you get over that and have the patience to eventually find your right path, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there's definitely times even now where you might put out a social media post and it's not really being looked at or played or liked as many times as you would have thought. I might go out to school and do a speech and expecting to have a certain impact, and it doesn't have the impact that I thought it would. There's always different elements that take place. And so there have been times for sure that I'm going on my path and I'm like, is this really the path? Is this what's for me? Like, I know I had success last month, but this month it's been dead, or, things aren't really going as well as I thought they would. And so, the road is always up and down, right? The road to success is always, there's always obstacles and different things like that. And so, yes, I've had the times where I'm like, is this the path for me? Am I really, I think this is my purpose, but is it really my purpose? And one of the things that I have used is a inspiration folder. And so what that is I have it on my phone. And every time I get a message, a DM, a comment of someone saying, wow, Jeff, like you changed my life with that. Jeff, that post was amazing. Jeff, you came to our organization. My goodness, I wanted to talk to you, but I couldn't, or whatever it might say. I take a screenshot of that and I put it in my inspiration folder. Because like any other human, there's going to be times that you're feeling like, man, like, am I doing the right thing? You're feeling somewhat inadequate. You're feeling vulnerable. And when I can go back to that folder, it's a reminder that you are doing the right thing, that you are on the right path. And it's funny how that works. You know, I recall 2 times in my speaking career where I was like, am I really doing the right thing? Like, is this really for me? And I've had people after presentations in 2 different situations come to me and say, that was amazing. My goodness, you changed my life. If you ever doubted what you were doing, I'm telling you now, you are walking in your path. And I was like, ooh, like, you're in my head. You are in my head. You know what I'm saying?
God puts these people in your path, right, to keep you on track, right?
It's almost scary. It's almost scary. And so, yeah, I will take screenshots of comments of different things and put them in this inspiration folder for those times when I'm not feeling as good, when I am feeling down and out, when I feel like, am I doing the right thing? It helps me to continue on along this journey.
I thank you for that, because I have moments like that. Even a couple of days ago, actually, I just had another moment just like that. And I collect testimonials from time to time, but I'm gonna make it my inspiration folder. That's a thing that I'm definitely gonna do, because I have self-doubt that I deal with when it comes to speaking. And one of the things I'm gonna do is definitely this. Another thing is just focusing on now. Right now, I know
Yes.
this is something that I like doing. And I'm not going to put pressure on myself to say, this is my purpose. This has to be, the plan, the divine plan for me. You know what? This is my plan now. And
Yes.
this is my best guess right now, and just go with that. And maybe that's a lesson for anybody listening or watching. Whatever it is right now that's best for you, do that. And
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about, is this the one thing? And you probably have seen that with kids in school. They are not sure what career path to take, and they let that analysis paralysis set in, and they want to do this one career, but maybe that might not be the one that they're eventually going to fall into long term. But it's just a
Right.
matter of getting started and say, this is right now. Cool. It can change, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and you mentioned it earlier with what Jay Shetty said, is that try something new all the time, because that thing that you're trying, that might not be the thing, but that thing will lead to the thing.
Hmm.
And you have to do that first thing, even though you tried and you failed or it sucks. Sometimes that opens doors, ideas to that other thing. And so now that thing can really change your life because you tried the first lane. So, trying the first lane and changing lanes, or however you want to say it, really can lead to opening up your thoughts, your minds, meeting new people as well, because there's people out there who are trying new things every day. And sometimes you have a piece and someone else has a piece, you put them together, and now you have that next big business or that next successful, whatever it is that you're looking to do. But yeah, you're absolutely right. We all have those days where we're feeling down and out. Kwesi, I hope you can always hit me up, when you're having those days, because, I'm grateful that you're speaking about me and what you saw with my impact, but I was blessed enough to sit in your audience as well, at least in that one situation, and see the impact that you had. And everyone does it differently. If you look at some of the bigger names out there, you have the E.T. the hip hop preachers, who are like loud and doing his thing, and that works for some people, and I think he's great. And then you have the ones who are a little quieter, like the Zig Ziglars, who they don't yell and scream the same way, but they're so impactful. And so some people like one style, when some people like another style. You know what I mean? And when it comes down to it, you have a style that people are going to adapt to. And of course, maybe not everyone loves it. Not everyone loves my style, but so long as it's about helping and serving people, the people who need to hear you will hear you. And you'll make such a big impact. You are making such a big impact. And the fact that you, just like you talked about with failure, you try, you pivot, you try something new, you ask questions. Does this work? Does that work? That's what's going to get you to that goal, so to speak. So you are on the path. I salute you for what you do. I salute you for not giving up, and just continuing to make a difference in the lives of the people who need to hear it from you.
Well, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that, especially coming from you. I respect you and what you do, both in and out of law enforcement. And I want to really, really thank you for being on here. As we close off, I just wanted to ask you, what's your either favorite book or favorite quote that you'd like to leave us with, and why? And then we'll get how people can contact you.
Yeah, so I can answer both of those. So my favorite book is from Lisa Nichols. Lisa Nichols is my favorite speaker, and the book is called No Matter What. It's her first book, and she blows me away every time I hear her voice, whether it be through her writing in her book, whether it be through listening to her YouTube videos. She's an amazing speaker who inspires me, and so yeah, I definitely would say that she's a big inspiration to me.
Yeah.
My favorite quote, I would say, is from Marianne Williamson. And it's, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who are we to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, famous? Actually, who are we not to be? We are a child of God whose your playing small does not serve the world. And it goes on from there. But that is my absolute favorite quote. I read it off my phone. I have it as my screensaver because it's something that I want to see every time my phone rings, every time I pick it up. It's obviously the thing that we all keep on us the most. And I want to keep that quote with me because it's a reminder, who am I to be gorgeous, brilliant, talented, famous? But who are you not to be? We doubt ourselves all the time. We let the world tell us who we are. And we have to ask ourselves, who are we not to be? Like, why can't I be successful? Why can't I be the greatest speaker in my area? Why can't I write the best book? Why can't I be the best student or the best father or the best son? Why can't I? Like, what is stopping me? We stop ourselves.
I love that. I love that quote too. Love Marianne Williamson. Just her book Return to Love is one of my favorite books.
Yes.
And Lisa Nichols is my favorite female speaker.
Yes.
And I just say female because I have some males that are my favorite, and she's definitely top 3 all-time speakers as well.
Yes.
She has a quote that says, "Some motivation comes wrapped in sandpaper," and I quote that in one of my favorite stories that I like to tell. So I'm with you on that, brother.
How true is that, though?
Huh?
How true is that, though? Some of it does come in wrapped in sandpaper, meaning that the lesson we learn, it's tough. 2020 has been wrapped in sandpaper, right? It's been tough. However, there's so many lessons that we can learn through the difficult times that we're going through.
So many ugly gifts we can take out of this, to quote you.
A lot of ugly gifts, absolutely.
So when it comes to Jeff, make sure you go Amazon. Both of these books are on Amazon. Brothers from the Six, if you have kids, especially if they're a mixed racial background or Black kids, white kids, doesn't matter. Bottom line is, and it's a great book. And the illustration in here, I got to give kudos to your illustrator. The person who drew amazing pictures.
Oh man, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course, New Me, which is a compilation book with Jeff and 9 other authors writing stories of perseverance. So definitely you get that on Amazon as well. As we close off, Jeff, tell us where we can find you online.
Absolutely. So real quick, you talked about my illustrator. He was amazing. I just want to shout him out. Mel Caspia, you are the man. I still get a lot of love from this illustration. So thank you very much for that. I just got to say that real quick.
Of course.
You can find me all over social media. Find me on the internet. Just Google me, Jeff A.D. Martin. And whether it be social media, Jeff A.D. Martin, or my website, jeffadmartin.com. Yeah, usually if you type in Jeff A.D. Martin on Google, it'll pop up. Something will pop up about me. You can find me there.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you for coming on, and I appreciate you. You motivated me. You gave me lots of takeaways, and thank you again. Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you, sir.
Thanks.